There we are.
You see us now?
They see you now.
They see us now. Okay. Hi, guys. Welcome to our live stream. Thanks for tuning in. We're super excited about this lecture tonight. So I'm Quinn. This is Neil. And today we're going to talk to you guys about starting and completing a photo project and getting inspired to do a photo project of your own. Special thanks before we get started to B&H and Canon for sponsoring this live stream. They make it possible and we love them. Go ahead, Neil.
And I just like to say, Quinn and I actually taught a course on doing photo projects about a few months ago, and watching the students work on the project and come up with ideas and so forth was really fascinating. And we had a blast with them. We just had the best time and watching them and seeing them. And it just seemed like doing a live stream on something like this would be something that would be really fantastically fun and so forth. I've been photographing for 60 years, since I was 13, 62 years. And I'm always wanting to take pictures of this and that and this and that and this and that. And that's a lot of fun. But actually coming up with a project, I think, is one way to really push us and make us work and really make photography much more fun. So I'm going to start by just saying, Gene and I moved to Montana 30 years ago. And we used to love driving the small roads around Montana and just seeing kind of what's in the state. And we kept passing these little tiny schoolhouses, and it was strange because it's like, well, wait a minute, there's no, people all go to big schools now. And we realized that there were still lots of one-room schoolhouses active in the state of Montana. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm going to do a project on one-room schools. Well, it took me years and years to finally get to do it. And a really good friend of mine named Keith Graham, who's a professor at the University of Montana, Keith came to me one day and said, Neil, that project you've been talking about too many years, we're going to do it. So in the school year 2013-2014, Keith and I did 18 trips around the state of Montana, and we photographed 27 of the 68 public one-room schools. And we actually got a book published, which was rather kind of fun. I'd never planned on doing a book in my life and was like, wow, I actually have a book. We didn't quite get into the Today Show, but that's okay. It was still a lot of fun. And it was just something, I don't know, when you're doing a project, it's so exciting because you keep wanting to shoot more and more and more, and you're always finding new things to do and new ways to do it. And Keith and I would be driving in the car on the first trip, and we'd have a little idea here and a little idea there, and we think, we're going to do it this way, or we're going to do it this way, or we're going to do it in black and white, we're going to do it in color. And we go back and forth. And the fun thing about doing a project, whether you do it by yourself or someone else, is you're always coming up with new ideas, and it keeps you so creative. It's like you don't ever want to stop shooting. You're just shooting, and then you go back and you start editing your pictures, and maybe 99% are like, well, okay. But you come up with a few really great ones every day and so forth, and that's pretty cool too. And I'll just quickly show you, this is the book we did called Chasing Time. And in the school year 1913 to 1914, there were 212,000 active one-room schools in the United States. 100 years later, there were less than 200, and Montana had more than any other state. Like I said, in public schools, we had 68 of them. And I'm just going to show you a couple schools here. This school's in Cleveland, Montana, which has a bar, and I think 2 houses, and a one-room school. And Shirley was a teacher, or still is, and now they've got actually 7 students. And the school was awesome. Brittany rode her horse to school almost every day, which was rather cool because I don't think there's many schools where students ride. And here's 2 of the students here, and here's Shirley. And the closeness, you can tell, students just love her. She was an awesome teacher. I think one of the conclusions that Keith and I came up with is, if a one-room school has a great teacher and students are there for 9 years, K through 8, the students get such an amazing education. This is just a view driving there and so forth. And I'll show you one other school real quick because it was kind of unique. If I can find it in here. Where'd my bookmark go? Another school is Hawks Home. This was the only school in the state in that year. They had one teacher and one student. And it's a public school. And she lives too far away to bus. So there's a little school right there out in the middle of nowhere. There's no town even close. Here's a schoolroom with a student and a teacher. There's gym class, the student and the teacher. And there they are. They look like they're related. They both had red hair. It was just, I don't know. All I can say is that I am always thinking of new projects and new ideas of projects to do. And this was probably the most exciting project I ever did in my life.
Wow. That's an awesome example that Neil just showed of a project getting really big and turning into something bigger than what he even expected it to turn into. Like having a book made about it is a huge step that he wasn't even expecting to happen. So another example of a project that I'm going to show you guys is one that I did that I think a lot of photographers have done or at least attempted, and it's called the 365 project. And it's where you take an image every day for a year. So you end up with 365, hopefully decent or good images. And I started mine because I had a kiddo and I became a stay-at-home mom for a little over a year. And I love photography and I love shooting and being creative and staying inspired. And some days I wouldn't leave the house and I would have a really young baby with me. So challenging myself to take a photo, even of him or of something else around me every day, was a really great way to keep me inspired and keep me photographing and keep me challenging myself, because maybe the light wasn't always great. Or maybe I forgot to take a photo until 10 o'clock that night and I only had a lamp on, but I still attempted to take an image. So that was a really great way to challenge myself. And what I did was I ended up taking those photos and printing them small every day. And some of them are very similar. There's a lot of a kiddo sleeping, a lot of kiddos' toes. And then sometimes I would get more creative. I would take some self-portraits, okay? And sometimes I would be lazy and wait until everyone was sleeping to take an image. But I ended up with a lot of really, really great memories. And these just kind of live on my coffee table in my house now. I have a whole stack of them. And some of them are great and I love them, and others aren't great, but I still love them because they're good memories. So that is a really great way to challenge yourself. Doing a 365 project, or even a 52-week project where you take one good image once a week for a year. That's a really great way to start too, because maybe one every day is a little much or you're really busy. Okay, so starting with just once every week, trying to take a good shot. That's a really great way to stay inspired too. And it's a little bit more achievable if you don't have a lot of time. Or especially if you're a parent just like me, you're home a lot. Okay, so we're going to talk about some ways that you guys can get inspired and inspire yourselves and challenge yourselves to create your own projects and start your own projects. Okay, so I like to start by making a list. That's my first step. I like to have a little kind of to-do list when I want to start a project, or when I feel like I'm in a creative lull and I haven't photographed in a while, or I haven't shot anything new, I haven't challenged myself in a little while. So I like to make a list of all the things that I would like to try to photograph that maybe I haven't, things I'm interested in, or something I'm passionate about, or something I don't know very much about and would like to learn more about and be involved in, or maybe a new issue that has come up in the world that I would like to share with others or document or be a part of. I just make a list of all of those things, and it takes like 2 or 3 minutes. You guys could even do it right now while you're watching this live stream. You could make a list of things that you just care about in general. And that's a great way to get started and just learn more about what you could potentially start a project on. Okay?
Researching a project Some projects need lots of research, some projects don't need much research, but researching a project is actually knowing what you're getting into takes a little bit of work, especially on some projects. In our one-room schoolhouse project, actually Keith did more of the research than I did. And with 56 counties in the state, we want to know which counties have public schools, and lots of counties are consolidated and they don't have them, but some counties have 5 or 6 one-room schools still operating. And so doing the research that way is really, really important when you start a project. We also had to get model releases. There were 2 or 3 schools that say, absolutely you can't come in, because they'd had bad experiences with someone coming in to do some kind of project with them or something else. Most schools welcomed us and loved us being there. And but doing your research, getting to know what right now I'm kind of doing a project. Oh, I bought a long lens a couple of years ago for the first time ever, and I'm photographing a lot of birds and trying to do a project on birds and so forth. And I realized this is my 3rd year of doing it, and I'm getting a lot better photographs. And it's not just the experience of photographing more, I'm also learning a lot. And I'm doing research and realizing a lot of things I didn't know about the subjects that I'm working with and so forth. So I think research really, before you start, and then as you start working on your project, doing more research to find out, will you becoming kind of a little bit of an expert or something like that. So research is very important.
All right, the next thing that I do, and I do this all the time, even if I don't plan on starting a project, and it inspires me to even start one. I look at other photographers' work a lot. I look at photographers on social media, or I have a lot of photography books, or I know a lot of other photographers, and so looking at their work can sometimes inspire me to try something new. Maybe I really like what they photographed and I want to try it too, or something similar. Or I really like their editing style, or I really like what they did with a project. Maybe they published it in a really interesting way that I would like to try, that inspired me. So looking at the work of other photographers can really inspire you. And it also can push you to be better, because maybe they just have work that is so, so strong and you are almost jealous of it and you want to try to recreate something like that or push yourself to be better. And that's a great way to start a project, is just looking at other people's work and pushing yourself to be as good as you think that they are.
And figuring out goals. As you go on, your goals might change, but what is your goal when you start out? Having an idea of because Keith and I had thought about a video, and we thought about maybe this could become a magazine article, or maybe possibly a book. We weren't sure what our goals were going to be at first. We actually never thought about doing a show, and it ended up that we did a major show at one of the best museums in it's in Missoula here, in the state of Montana. And the show was up for quite a few months, and then it traveled throughout the state to other galleries and so forth. And now our goal here wasn't to sell prints, because selling, pictures of kids in schoolhouses and teachers isn't going to sell, but just to have your name out there, the fun of having something up that people come and look at. And we had a giant First Friday opening, and so many people came. And so having goals, setting goals is good, but being very open whether you're going to have those goals or not. And also I want to say here, I think lots of times doing a project by yourself is fun, but also doing a project when you can brainstorm with somebody. And Keith and I had hundreds of hours in the car, and we were all, and Keith likes to talk a lot, and so do I. We never stopped. And so we were always getting more excited and finding new ways of doing things. It was just kind of neat. So figuring out your goals before you start the project, and then being open to changing them as you get going, is actually quite good. And what gear do you need? That's always kind of an important thing. I hate to say it, but I do love gear, and probably have more than I need and so forth. And you start with, like on our trips, I started out with a lot more stuff than I ever needed to carry. And then our second trip and third trip, I narrowed my stuff down to maybe just 2 lenses and 1 camera body. And and the gear I use, I changed the way I used it. I changed my settings. I changed how I did my exposures. And so learning your gear and how to use the gear. And then also gear-wise, Keith and I we'd have a shoot at the Pledge of Allegiance at 8:30 in the morning, but we thought, wow, sunrise is pretty neat in eastern Montana. And so we're going to get up an hour and a half early, and we're going to photograph landscape shots. And we started doing a whole series of landscape shots also. So we kind of gave ourselves a second project, going with our first project. Then we thought of some other projects, and we're actually thinking of another project up on the High Line of Montana now. So, so your equipment actually in that case changed because we started bringing lenses for landscape photography and so forth. Okay. Starting a project.
Timeline.
The timeline, let's see, making a list of, the timeline. Okay.
Yeah, your timeline.
Thank you, Quinn.
Yeah.
For keeping me here. I think a timeline is also something we really want to do a school year. We want to do through September through May and just go through the school year like that. So having a timeline to follow is really, really something that's important. And now Quinn's project was pretty easy because, not easy, but hers was 365 days. And so how can she go wrong in something like 365 days? We had a timeline of a school year, and we stayed within that timeline. We went back to a few schools a couple times because they were such interesting schools. Okay?
All right, so let's chat a little bit about actually doing the project. Okay, now that you've thought about your gear and how long it's going to take you to complete the project and what your goals are, you have an idea for a subject or a topic, you need to think about actually doing the project and what is important while completing it, while actually making this project a reality.
First thing is gaining access, and that's something that it's a pretty amazing sometimes. So many times you'll feel like, oh, someone's not going to let us in here, or someone's going to let us do this. And I know in all my years of photography, there's so many times when I was thinking, well, there's a 1% chance. And all of a sudden that 1% chance, you're really nice and you know how to be kind to the people. And people are oftentimes just likely to say yes to things that you're not expecting. And I've had that happen with many projects. And this project, gaining access, of course, was lots and lots of work because you're going through school boards and you're going through all kinds of things like that, which make it a lot. But gaining access is important, and not being afraid to try gaining access is, just being, it's like, this might possibly work. So gaining access.
And whatever your project, to add on to that, whatever your project or your topic is, make sure that whatever you're doing or wherever you're going, that if it requires you to ask permission or if it involves someone else's property or someone else in general, just make sure that you ask permission. And more than likely, if you say you're doing a photo project, they'll say yes, but it's polite and important to ask. Okay, so editing your project. You have all these photographs, maybe like thousands and thousands of images, but you need to edit them now and narrow them down. Okay, so editing, the big thing I want to talk about with editing is to make sure that they're cohesive, the way that you edit, so that they look like they were all taken by the same photographer, and so they look like they were all meant to go together, like one project. Okay, so that you edit them kind of consistently so that they all have the same sort of look and the same sort of vibe, and you can choose if you want it to be color or black and white. Like Neil was talking about deciding whether his one-room schoolhouse project was going to be in color or going to be in black and white, and he chose color. So all of these images in this book are color, and all of my images are color too, because that's just what made sense for both of our projects. But having a black and white project can be really powerful and really timeless as well. So think about having maybe a black and white project, but make sure that it's cohesive. So you should pick all black and white or all color.
Giving feedback. This is a big one. So many times when we're shooting, we're so biased on what we shoot, and maybe everything was perfect, the day was perfect, and you just look at your photograph and you know it's the best photograph you've ever taken. And lots of times other people aren't going to think maybe that's quite the same. And I know when I was ready to get the show, deciding how many pictures would go to the museum here. And I started looking at my photographs, and I picked out a bunch of good ones. And I had 3 different people going ahead and looking at my photos and just giving me ideas. And they gave me lots of good ideas. I had like maybe 20 minutes to half an hour from each of these people. And then my daughter-in-law, who co-directs the school with my son, she was over at our house for dinner one Sunday afternoon. And I said, Sarah, would you take a look at my photos? She said, sure, Neil. And Sarah and I work pretty well together. And Sarah was looking at my photographs, and she's looking and said, Neil, you really like that one? And I said, yes, Sarah. She said, you really do? And I said, yes, Sarah. And it was like, whoa. And Sarah is a people person, and she's an amazing people photographer. Then there'd be some I kind of thought were okay. And she said, oh my, Neil, that's wonderful. And she started giving me her reasons, and she started putting them in piles and so forth. And I've got to say, she spent 2 to 3 hours editing my photos with me. And when you've got someone like that who really, really gives you the honest opinion, because I'd be a schoolhouse that I thought, this is the most fun schoolhouse we've been to. I can't take a bad picture here. Well, guess what? That's not always true. So having others give you feedback, whether the photographers, and sometimes having non-photographers give you feedback, because lots of times the people looking at your work are not professional photographers.
Okay, so again, making sure that your project is cohesive. So not just with the editing though, but if you're trying to tell a story, make sure that you have a clear beginning, middle, and end illustrated with your photographs so that someone following it who wasn't there or who doesn't know anything about your topic can easily follow it. And if it's not a story, having all of the details that are important, okay, and no details that aren't important or something that would distract or disconnect or make someone wonder why that photograph is in with the rest of the project. Make sure that all of it goes together and that it all flows smoothly and it looks like one unit altogether. And again, like Neil said, having other people look at your work who are photographers and who aren't photographers are a really great resource for asking which ones do go and which ones don't. And they might tell you to add some or to take some away. And it's really easy to get an emotional connection to some of your images. And maybe you love them and you think that they need to be a part of your project, but maybe they don't. Maybe someone else who wasn't there and doesn't have an emotional connection to that photo will tell you otherwise, like what Sarah did to Neil. Okay?
Which I loved, by the way.
Yeah.
I don't want to say every photograph is nice.
No, which, yeah, it made it stronger, and that made your project go to the next level and make your show as good as it could possibly be. So getting enough feedback and really, really taking the time to look at all of your photos and have other people look at all your photos and make sure that they're cohesive, they go together, and they tell the story correctly, or they do whatever your project and whatever your topic is, make sure that they do that justice.
And this brings up a quick, funny, short story. In 1973, I spent most of the month of June in Yosemite National Park studying with Ansel Adams. And of course, he was critiquing all of our work, which was scary as could be. But Ansel was critiquing his own work. And oftentimes we want every photograph that we take to be a great photograph. When you're doing a photo project, you're going to have lots of stuff that doesn't come out. And Ansel said, and I remember this so clearly, he said in a good year that he shot 5 photographs. On the average, if he shot 5 that he loved, he thought that was really a good year of photography. And I know lots of photographers go to Europe and shoot 3,000 pictures, and they want to show you almost all 3,000 because they think every one of them is good. And maybe they're better than Ansel, I don't know. But it's kind of nice to be able to have people look at your work and tell you what really is good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you did your project. It maybe took you a really long time, like it took Neil, or it maybe took you a really long time, like it took my project, okay? But now that you have done something, you've done this project and you have all your images and you've created something, but if they just live on your desktop or in a catalog in your Lightroom, or in a folder in your Lightroom catalog, or if they just live somewhere in little JPEG files on your computer, you're not going to have that satisfaction of actually completing and presenting the project. Okay, you need to get the project out into the world in some sort of way. Especially if it's something you're passionate about, you probably want to share that with other people. Or if it's about some issue you want to raise awareness about, that's another thing that you should get out to the world and to other people. So make sure that you share it in some way. And one way would be to share it on social media, which is the easiest way because it's still digital. You don't have to print anything, but it's still a way to show the world. Okay, you could, if you have a photography account on Instagram, or you could make an Instagram account specifically for the project that you're doing. If it's something really huge that will take a lot of time, you could create an account specifically for the project, and you could share all those images. And then you could put captions with them too, which sometimes make photos stronger. Especially if there's details that are missing that are important to the story. So you could make an Instagram account and you could share them that way, or you could share them some way on any other photography social media place. That's a really great way to at least start getting them out to the world and sharing them with someone other than yourself.
Making a book is actually kind of a really fun way. Now, getting a book published like this, we weren't planning on that. But it was really a good, fun idea. A funny story, Keith and I decided to self-publish our book first, which was twice as thick as this, had 400 and something pages in it, and it cost us over $150 per book. And we figured probably we wouldn't sell a whole lot of books for $200 a piece. So therefore, self-publishing can be, if you want to try it, we wanted to see what it would look like. But also, I just went to Cuba a month ago, and I wanted to go forever because photographers just wanted to go to Cuba so much because it's so colorful and so exciting. I was there with my wife and another one of our instructors, Doug Johnson, and because we're doing a workshop there next year. We're going to scout it out and so forth. And I've made all these 13 by 19 prints, and I couldn't believe how many good photographs I got in just a week of shooting and so forth. And I keep showing them to people out of the box and so forth. So there's a woman in town that makes these beautiful books, and they got 3 rings in them, and you put the photographs in archival sheets, and then you can. And I'm getting one of those made in the next couple of weeks, where that's a book where I can just have in my office when people stop by my office to look, or I can bring it with me. And I'm probably going to get one also made in letter size 8.5 by 11 print size, and have another book like that. And so there's lots of ways to do things. And so just having a book to show your work is kind of nice, and you can leave it on your coffee table or in your office or something like that. Mm-hmm. So doing a book's a great way to go.
Oops, I got 2. Oh no, okay, sorry guys, hang on. Okay, you could also just print your images in general. You don't have to bind them and turn them into a book or put them in a photo album. You could just print them, you could mat them and frame them and hang them in your home. You could hang them in an art show like Neil's gonna talk about in a minute. Or you could just print them little, like what I did with these. I have so many, I'm not gonna print them all huge, but I am gonna print them little, and I just have this stack on my coffee table or my bookshelf or wherever at home, and people come over and they look through them, and sometimes they want to take one because it's so precious, and they just love to flip through them and look at them, and my pile just lives in my house. And it's a really sweet way to share my project, but also keep it to myself so people can look at it, flip through it, and they can have some if they want them. And it's also just a physical thing, so I don't have to go back through my desktop or my pictures folder to see these photos that I created. I can actually flip through them, and it's really cool to have them little and to be able to touch and feel them and share them with other people.
And the last thing before we finish is art shows are a lot of fun. And, you know, we oftentimes, like my show at the museum was the biggest show that I've ever had. But if I've had my stuff on display at a restaurant in town, lots of times banks and other businesses put up stuff where you get your stuff framed and put things up. A few people actually, like quite a few photographers, make a living traveling the country showing different types of photography. Those maybe aren't projects. It might be beautiful landscape photography. But getting your stuff in an art show, or really, again, I know of a student who a few years ago went to a small restaurant in the town where they live and they had never shown work. And that person shows their work every 3 months. They change the work and something. And getting your stuff shown where people can see it. Because so many of us do projects and ideas, and where they live, on our hard drive. And who looks at our hard drive besides us? And we think, we did all this work, it's so much fun, and no one's seeing our work. So these are 4 good examples of how to present your work to other people and so forth.
It's an ego boost too, to have other
Yes.
people, like especially an art show, other people looking at it and really liking your work. It helps you feel really good about yourself. And if you sell something, that's huge. That's awesome. We love selling work, especially if you're a landscape or a fine art photographer or something. Selling our images feels so
Pretty
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. So that's our little talk on photo projects. And just to emphasize, photo projects are a really great way to stay inspired and to challenge yourself, and to stay creative. I know I get through these phases of where I just feel so bored with photography and I'm not creative at all and I just have never shot anything new and I'm, really in kind of a lull. And so challenging myself to photograph something I care about or something new or something I'm curious about is a really great way to just learn new things and challenge myself and create maybe some really, really nice new work.
Yeah. Thanks, Quinn.
Yeah, thank you, Neil.
It was fun doing this with you.
Is there anything you want to add?
No, I think what Quinn's, I'll just add one little thing. I love Quinn's small prints. I love them being square. And so many times we always think prints need to be big. And unfortunately for lots of the public, big always draws people in. So, but really just be creative and be yourself. And have people just find ways for people to look at your work. And that makes your photography more fun. And every time you go on a trip, think of a project on that trip, even if you're just shooting the alleyways of Ireland or something. Besides all the other photography, find a way to do something like that.
Yeah,
so
helps you photograph with some intention.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Totally. Well, that's our live stream. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If you liked us, hit the like button. If you didn't, then I guess hit the dislike button. And if you're already subscribed to us, we love you and thank you. And if you're not, you can subscribe to us by hitting that subscribe button below.
And thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.